I'm Tony Wiggins of Locked On Jaguars. In 5 days, the Jaguars travel to Houston to see if they can get that much closer to being over 500. We'll talk about that and play along with the number 5 on today's show of Locked On Jaguars. Stand by.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, good people? Thank you for joining me for another edition of Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of said podcast, and it is your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. Reminding you that we are free on all platforms, wherever you get your...
You are Locked On Jaguars.
And you already know, I already said that already. Reminding you that we are free on all platforms, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you like and subscribe. We are totally free. You like that double introduction. You are Locked On Jaguars. She's going to let you know that you are Locked On Jaguars. That's who you are, and that's where you are, and that's where you're at and who you with. 5 days until game day. I'm going to play with the number 5 a little bit, and I'm going to talk about 5 guys outside of Trevor Lawrence that I think, and we're going to talk about this run we're on, right? 5 guys outside of Trevor Lawrence that I think need to show up and show up big if the Jaguars are going to fulfill their dreams, make the playoffs, and try to make some noise on a magical run. I was going to do the number 9 because the first time they made the playoffs, I think they were 9-7. So if they go 9-8, and by the way, they went to the AFC Championship game and lost in New England. And they were in the red zone when they lost to New England back in the day. But we're going to stick with the number 5. I'm going to name 5 guys outside of Trevor Lawrence in order. Who would you take out of Jaguars history? I'm going to do that in segment 2. I'm going to name 5 guys outside of the top 3. My bad. 5 guys, first segment, who need to play well outside of Trevor Lawrence. Segment 2, I mixed 2 segments up. Segment 2, we're going to name 5 guys from Jaguars history and not name Fred, Jimmy, or Tony Boselli, right? We're going to take these guys. Who do you think, in order, guys that would help? I'm not picking Jalen. Don't worry. Y'all don't worry. Nobody's going to have to beat me up, okay? I'm not going to pick Jalen Ramsey. But 5 people from Jaguars history who you believe, in order, you can only have 1, but then you have to name your other choices just in case you couldn't get them. I'm going to do that. That would be perfect for this team. Absolutely perfect for this team to help them down the stretch. Some are obvious. Some probably are not that obvious. And then what we'll do is I'll go 5 guys in lieu, because J.J. Watt has kind of told us he's going to retire. He's a longtime Houston Texan before he went to Arizona. I want to name the 5 best non-Jaguar players who were division rivals, meaning people that they saw twice a year. Now, get this, they had realignment. So I'm going to name the 5 guys that I believe the best players that are division rivals that the Jaguars have played. I'm going to leave some people out, man. They played a lot of great players over the years. So we're going to play with number 5 today, but we're going to start with the here and now, and that is a game that happens 5 days from now in Houston that I believe, and I told you on yesterday's show, that I think is very, very important for the Jaguars to maintain their momentum. You don't want to go into the last game coming off of a loss to a terrible team and then having self-doubt. And they have this thing going for them that is momentum, and I think momentum is something. It's called momentum for a reason, because it's continuous. You don't have a break. You don't get a day off from momentum or a vacation from momentum and then want to claim you still have it. Doesn't work that way, right? So we want to keep the momentum and keep the hot team theme going, because we've done that on multiple occasions in the past, and it's boded well for the Jaguars down the stretch. It seems like every single year, outside of the year that they went 14-2, by the way. And I don't want to really bring that up because they went 15-3, and all 3 losses were to the Titans. So we're going to put that to bed. I'm going to talk about that stuff tomorrow, right? And then we'll have the crossover show on Thursday. But the 5 players I believe that have to step up to help this team, not named Trevor Lawrence, because we know Trevor don't have to step up, because Trevor, all he has to do is be Trevor, because Trevor is that good. How about this? Walker Little. And no, that's not one person, that's two people. But when you say them back to back, it sounds like you're talking about one person, who is Walker Little, the left tackle. So while we're at it, he's there. Walker Little has to play well down the stretch. Teams are going to continue to test him. They're going to come at him because he's the most unproven commodity on the squad, and they're going to try to knock Trevor off of his square. I don't think it's going to work. You know why it's not going to work? Because they get the ball out so quickly, and Trevor has two things that are attached to his ankle that we have nicknamed the getaway cars. He can run. So I do believe, though, that he has to be stout in the run game as well as the pass game, and at least offer up some resistance. How about his brother? How about Walker, as in Trayvon? Trayvon needs to come back because now the depth is tested out, or is going to be tested out a lot because of DeJuan Smoot's absence, and they need to continue to try to get after the passer. And if things go the way that I think they're going to go, they're going to have some opportunities to do that with who they play, who they may potentially play in the playoffs. There's going to be some teams you have to disrupt, because if you don't, they'll pick you apart. Andre Cisco, speaking of 5, that's number 5, Andre Cisco. He's a really, really important part of this franchise. He is super, super important in terms of what they do on the back end. And he's the one guy that brings that violence that you need. And I say that in a good way, in a football way, in a gladiator way. And he's very, very sudden. So they're a different team when he's back there. They're a team that are more likely to get turnovers with him on the field. So he has to be that good. Christian Kirk is the other one. He's at 1,000-yard season. I believe Christian Kirk is going to be huge down the stretch for this team. And he's going to have to be, because now he's the one guy. He's one of the guys that has a little playoff experience. This thing's going to ratchet up a little bit. And Christian Kirk has to actually make sure that, I think he has some playoff experience. I believe they did go to the playoffs when Fitzgerald was there and he was still there. But he's going to have to step it up a little bit and be better in the even though he's been good, he has to be better. Number 5 is going to shock you a little bit, but I do believe the Jaguars are going to have to stop the run, and they're going to have to be stout in the middle in order to get people off of the field. Therefore, I'm going to go with Devon Hamilton because he's the biggest dude up there on the defensive line, and he's the one who has been constant, because Foley Fatukasi has been out some. So the most consistent person in the middle has been Devon Hamilton, and I think he has to keep doing that. He's probably one of the people they could ill afford to have. I'm not going to mention can ill afford to have something happen where he can't play. How about that? So there you go. The 5 guys, other than Trevor Lawrence, who need to be there: Walker Little, 2 people, Trayvon Walker and Walker Little, 5 himself, Andre Cisco, along with Christian Kirk and Devon Hamilton. So now, coming up, what we're going to do is I'm going to go historical. I'm going to say, if you could pick one Jaguar from the past, not named Fred, Jimmy, or Tony, who would it be? Who would be the perfect match to put on this team as they make this historic playoff run to try to get into the playoffs, when everyone had really doubted them and doubted that they would be able to do it? And we're going to pick 5 people just in case you can't get your first option. We'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by Ultimate Football GM. That's right. I'm really geeked about our new partner and sponsor of today's episode, the mobile game, Ultimate Football GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM, managing your football franchise? Yes, you have, because you do it to me all the time. Well, your dream can come true, and this game is definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the season, and lead your team to glory. You're responsible for hiring the right coaches and coordinators, trading players, making draft picks, navigating your franchise through free agency and the draft, and all the ups and downs of a season. All this in a challenging, realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. Now, all of the times that me and y'all, we go back and forth when it comes about team building and who you should trade and who you should draft and what the team needs, you don't have to take it out on me anymore. Ultimate Football GM is where you need to be doing that. Now, Locked On Jaguars listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On, all caps. That's the promo code Locked On in all caps in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps, so make sure you check it out today. download the game. Just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. And as you know, today's show is also sponsored by PrizePicks. That's right. Now listen, not just about personnel issues. Y'all tell me who y'all think is going to win the game all the time and who's going to get how many yards, and you try to mix your fantasy football stuff in with my broadcast, and that's fine. I love it. But now you can actually get paid to do that kind of stuff. You don't have to argue with me for free. You can play prizepicks.com and get paid in real life because it's daily fantasy, and they have entries on PrizePicks. Now, these entries on PrizePicks come with player projections. For instance, if you had Nick Foles throwing anything less than 3 picks last night, you probably didn't do very well, right? So what you do is you go more or less than whatever the PrizePicks projection is for those individuals. Now, what do you love about the game format more than anything? I'll tell you what I love. I love the fact that it's just me and the computer. It's not me and Joe Schmo from the south side of Jacksonville, and I got to beat him, and he gets lucky. Like I lost my fantasy last night because the Chargers had 170 points on defense. Okay. But the thing I love is just you and the computer, man, and you can get on with it just like that. All you got to do is pick between 2 and 5 players, and they will go score more or less. That's right. It'll be more or less in their PrizePicks projection. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry, no competing against other people. It's just you and the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, PGA, and college football. Here's what you do. Go to prizepicks.com or download the PrizePicks app in your app store. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100 on your initial sign-up when you use the promo code Locked On. Make sure you go to PrizePicks and don't forget to use promo code Locked On at initial sign-up to get your bonus. All right, rolling along here on Locked On Jaguars. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of Locked On Jaguars. Thanking you for making us, once again, your first listen. You guys are greatly appreciated. As Pac said, you are appreciated. All right, so we're playing with the number 5 a little bit. We named the 5 guys the Jaguars have to have show up in order for them to make a run. Now, guess what we're going to do? We're going to say, I wish. I'm going to give you a Christmas wish, right? I'm going to get you to name the player, not named Tony Boselli, Jimmy Smith, or Fred Taylor, that you believe that will help this team down the stretch if you could go and snatch them from the past. It's easy to go with guys like Maurice Jones-Drew or Keenan McCardell, but I won't do it because I want to have some fun with it. And I don't think necessarily that, even though Keenan's better than any receivers on the roster right now, I don't think he's that number one you would be talking about. And as good as MJD was, I think Travis Etienne is just fine. I said who you needed the most. So here we go. I think that's a Slick Rick reference. The guys that I think would help this team the most down the stretch, and I would not blink an eye at getting them. And no, I'm not going to pick anyone from 2017. All right. I'll do that because I don't want to save y'all heartache because y'all know Jalen belongs on the list, but we won't do that and we won't go there, right? Tony Brackens would be number 1 for me. I think with the injuries and the depletion of some of the depth at defensive line and then some of the sketchy play at times with the pass rush, you wouldn't have had that problem with T. Brack because that tractor driving somebody was going to be coming off of that edge. So Tony Brackens would be my first player that I would take from Jaguars history to help this team down the stretch. Number 2 would be Marcus Stroud. This is no surprise. He's one of the 6 or 7 best players to ever play here. And I think he would absolutely, he helps anybody. Marcus Stroud was Chris Jones. If you don't remember, if you're too young to remember, that's what he was for the Jaguars. 6'6", 315, 320 pounds, and could absolutely rush the passer, stop the run, and had a nasty attitude to boot. And who couldn't use that on this team to help out with the defensive line? Number 3, Rasheem Mathis, safety and corner, extremely active. I don't think Rasheem Mathis at his best was better than Jalen Ramsey at his best, but Rasheed Mathis was here for a longer period of time, and I think he should at least be the next person to consider going into the Pride. I think he also had the temperament for this particular team that would really, really be a boost to the secondary, and it would give him another guy on the outside opposite Tyson Campbell who could really, really help this team. Number 4, John Henderson. For the same reasons I like Marcus Stroud, big hen, you could put him at big end. I said big hen, you can put him at big end. Or you could leave him inside, and John Henderson would be the selection that I would have. Number 5, I lied to you. I'm going to take Keenan McCardell because there is nothing like a route runner, a guy who can get open, a guy who can sit down in zones, and a guy who can also make tough catches. And then he did have another gear where he could get deep. Now, the reason I threw you off with Keenan is because I didn't want it to seem like it was obvious, right? So you say, Wig, all you did was not take the top 3, skip over MJD, and then you took probably the next 5 best players in franchise history. Well, no, that ain't how I did it. I did it in order. I said I'm going to go in order and tell you the guys that I think would help this team the most. And that's what I did. Don't tell me what I did. And you ain't even say it. I'm saying that you're saying it because I can feel it through my laptop that you guys are thinking at right now. So those are the 5 guys I believe would help the Jaguars the most down the stretch. If you could go and snatch 5 guys out of Jaguars history, that's not one of the obvious selections at the top spot. Notice I did not choose Mark Brunell, and that is a good thing. And the reason why I did not choose Mark Brunell is because we actually have a quarterback now. All right, man. So I'm going to play this little thing here, and it's a tribute to J.J. Watt. And I know he didn't play for the Jags, but he was a longtime divisional rival of the Jaguars before he went and moved to Houston. If you didn't know, he kind of tweeted out a picture of his newborn baby, said it is his baby's first NFL game, and it was his last home game as an NFL player, and everyone has ran as they should, and they jumped all over that and figured that J.J. Watt is now going to be retiring at the end of this season. So I'm going to name the 5 best divisional opponents, players from the divisional opponents that the Jaguars have had since their inception as a franchise. I'll do it in just a second here as we play on number 5 on Locked On Jaguars. I got to let you know first about Locked On Sports Today. My man Peter Bukowski is the host, and it is a power-packed show giving you the biggest stories from around the NFL every single day and the world of sports, period. It's less than 30 minutes, man. It's free on all platforms and podcasts, and you get to hear from local experts who can give you the download on everything. That's everything. That's right. We're talking about Locked On Sports Today. Make sure you find it on the Odyssey app, here where you're hearing this podcast, and anywhere else you get your podcast. It is free, and make it your second listen. Thanks for joining us again here on Locked On Jaguars, segment 3, as we play with the number 5, since there's 5 days until game time in Houston where the Jags could get to continue their momentum. I went back in history and named the 5 guys outside of the top 3 players in Jaguars history who I think in order would help this franchise or help this team the most. I also mentioned the 5 dudes that have to step up and help Trevor, the guys outside of Trevor who I think have to be on their P's and Q's for the Jaguars to reach their full potential. So now I'll go 5 guys in honor of J.J. Watt retiring, 5 players that I believe were the 5 best divisional opponent players, individuals that the Jaguars have played since they started. Now, this comes with a caveat. That caveat is that they had a realignment at some point during the Jaguars being into the league. So the division as it stands now is not the division where it always was. So this is close, man. Woo, this is close. Because you could literally name almost five Hall of Famers from the Indianapolis Colts, but I didn't do that, right? You could just say, okay, Wig, that's what you want to play. Give me Edgerrin James, Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, and Dwight Freeney. I'll just take those 5, right? I will tell you this. I think of all of the opponents, the team with the 5 best players are probably the Colts. But I didn't do that. I tried to spread it around a little bit. And I even went back and nabbed some guys who played at teams that were not in the division. So without further ado, here we go. Another Slick Rick reference. Peyton Manning is the best player the Jaguars have ever played against as a divisional opponent. And it's nothing really to argue about. The dude is probably top 5 of all time as an overall player. He's at least top 3 as a quarterback. Indianapolis, Peyton Manning, number 1. Number 2 is J.J. Watt. I think J.J. Watt is the second best player the Jaguars have ever played against. And he's about to retire, and he's going to be in rare air. Depends what they list him at. If they list him as a defensive tackle, he's probably going to be the 6th guy to be a first ballot Hall of Famer at that position. But he does everything, still can play, right? So I'll go with J.J. Watt. This is hard, man. Number 3 is Ray Lewis. I'm going to go with Ray Lewis as the third best player the Jaguars have played against as a divisional opponent since he came into the league. And I'm going to leave some people out here, and I know y'all going to scream on me a little bit, but I can't help it because I got to go with his teammate. I got to go with my man, Ed Reed. How can you mention Ray Lewis and not mention Ed Reed, maybe the greatest safety who's ever played this game? And last but not least, can I leave out Rod Woodson? Yeah, I can leave out Rod Woodson. I'm going to have to leave out Rod Woodson. Can I leave out Kevin Green? Yeah, I got to leave out Kevin Green. Can I leave out Steve McNair, the late Steve McNair? I got to leave him out. I got to leave D-Hop out. And I got to leave off Marvin Harrison too, man. But I got to give it to Big Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, hey, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer as well. And for a long time was a problem for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I want to look back at history. I want to make sure that I'm lining this up right, because the only way that I'll take this away is if when they did realignment, and I'm see if I can find it here because that just actually hit me. I'm going to Google, when did the NFL do realignment? Yeah, let's find that out, because if Big Ben, who came into the league in 2004, if he wasn't around, he was. It's 2002 when they did the realignment. So Big Ben no, that means he wasn't around. That's right. So guess what? Marvin Harrison is in. We're going to take Big Ben out. Big Ben was never a divisional opponent of the Jaguars. 2 years later, so now we auto-corrected right on the spot because I wanted to try to include a Pittsburgh Steeler, and it hit me that I had not included a Pittsburgh Steeler, but guess what? It can't be Big Ben because he was never in the same division as the Jacksonville Jaguars because he got into the league 2 years too late. So Marvin Harrison is number 5. We'll go with Peyton Manning, Ray Lewis, J.J. Watt, Peyton Manning, J.J. Watt, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, and Marvin Harrison is the 5 best players who were divisional opponents since the Jaguars have been in the league. We played around with number 5 today because we're 5 days away from the Jaguars continuing their magical run. And when you think about runs, I want y'all to think about Natron Means. I want y'all to think about Morton Anderson missing that kick. I want you to think about those types of things that I want you to think about the win at Pittsburgh when the boys came back and said, we're going to New England, we're going to win. I think we're on to something, and I think we have a chance to do that. So that's why I wanted to kind of talk about the present, include the Jaguars from the past, and then talk about out of respect to J.J. Watt retiring, talk about the past as it means, show you how many good players the Jaguars have had to play against as they try to win this division. You guys make sure you tune in tomorrow. We'll have another great show for you. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff, including those nasty, nasty Titans and what it would really mean. Will we really be? And I know I'm not looking past Houston, but I'm only doing it because that game, while it means something momentum-wise, the following week will still be for the division. Will we be killing some demons from the past if we can finally get past the Tennessee Titans and win the division? Until then, you guys take care of each other, man, and we'll be back tomorrow for another show here on Locked On Jaguars.